Let's dive right into today's explainer because we are looking at a truly ambitious venture aimed at modernizing one of the absolute most critical sectors on the African continent. We're talking about Soupe.ng. And right off the bat, you need to know this isn't just another grocery delivery app trying to grab a slice of the market. They're actively working to build Africa's food infrastructure operating system. It is a massive, audacious goal. To really grasp how they plan to pull it off, we have to understand the deep, systemic issues they're actually solving. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The trillion-dollar food problem. 2. The pivot that changed everything. 3. Africa's food operating system. 4. Physical hubs and collaborative commerce. 5. The data and intelligence flywheel. And finally, 6. Scaling a defensible venture. Let's get right into it. Part 1. The trillion-dollar food problem. $1 trillion. That staggering number is actually the African Development Bank's projection for Africa's agriculture and agribusiness economy over time. I mean, it's a monumental market, right? Food is universal, it's recurring, and it's literally essential. Every single household, institution, and community has to buy food. But despite this absolutely massive economic value, the system is fundamentally broken. And the real reason why, well, it might actually surprise you. Here's the real kicker. Africa doesn't just have a food production problem. It has a massive food coordination disconnect. Think about this. Right now, many agricultural products see post-harvest losses of 30% to 40% before they ever even reach a consumer. Imagine going to the market, buying 10 tomatoes and immediately chucking 4 of them into the trash before you even start cooking. That is the reality playing out at a systemic level. We're talking about billions of dollars in lost economic value. Farmers are out there struggling to find buyers, while consumers are getting squeezed by rising prices. The supply is there, the demand is there, but they are stuck in totally disconnected silos. Soupe recognized that just throwing more money at producing more food doesn't fix the bottleneck. The missing link here is coordination. Moving on to part 2, the pivot that changed everything. The technology failed. The market did not. I absolutely love this quote from the founder. It perfectly shows that rather than just giving up when their very first tech platform struggled, they dug their heels in and looked at the actual evidence. You know, the first generation of the Soupe platform ran into implementation challenges. And honestly, most startups would have just walked away right then, or maybe just endlessly tweaked their code in a vacuum. Instead, management made this brilliant contrarian move. They literally paused the software and went directly into the market themselves. Just look at how this journey actually builds. They launched an operational validation vehicle called Loom Palm Enterprise. They hit the streets and literally bought, sold, negotiated, and coordinated the logistics entirely offline. And guess what? They generated over 22.7 million naira in revenue doing it. This wasn't about trying to scale instantly. It was about proving, beyond a doubt, that the demand was real, the suppliers were willing, and the customers were absolutely hungry for a solution. They learned exactly where the friction was happening in real life. And that crucial realization that the tech had failed but the market was very much alive became the exact blueprint for redesigning their ultimate solution. Which brings us to part 3, Africa's food operating system. So enter Soupe.ng. Again, this is not just a digital marketplace. It's a robust food infrastructure operating system built from the ground up to coordinate supply and demand efficiently. With the market fully validated, the team realized something crucial. A purely digital app can't magically teleport physical food, and a purely physical distributor just can't scale fast enough. Soupe combines the two. They are building an entire system that allows food to be planned, financed, traded, aggregated, and finally delivered. Think of this as a 4-layered moat. This is really where the magic happens. Most competitors out there are only focusing on one of these areas. Soupe is integrating all 4. First, you have the physical layer for real-world aggregation and building local trust. Then, the digital layer for seamless commerce and tapping into global diaspora support. Third is the intelligence layer, which turns everyday transactions into highly accurate demand forecasts. And finally, the financial layer, providing much-needed capital to both the farmers and the buyers. Putting it all together creates this highly defensible ecosystem that is incredibly difficult for any single-layer competitor to copy. Let's dig deeper into part 4, physical hubs and collaborative commerce. The absolute most crucial point here is that Soupe isn't trying to invent some brand new consumer behavior. They are simply digitizing the collaborative buying that already happens offline. Long before e-commerce was even a word, African communities were buying in bulk. Families pull their money, religious groups coordinate welfare purchases, diaspora relatives send funds back home. Soupe just puts all of that on a digital rails. This massively increases the average order value, slashes logistics costs, and drives customer acquisition costs way down because entire communities are joining all at once. For an investor, this is kind of the holy grail, transforming food shopping from a solo chore into a highly coordinated, high-volume community event. So, where does all this food actually go in the real world? It flows through their Consumer Experience Centers, or CECs. These are the physical nodes that bridge the gap. Now, Soupe doesn't need to go out and buy giant, expensive fleets of delivery trucks. Instead, they use a brilliant asset-light model where the CEC acts as a localized hub. Step 1, the farmers drop off their produce. Step 2, it's safely stored and displayed. Step 3, the community groups come and pick up their bulk orders. And Step 4, third-party logistics partners handle any last-mile delivery. These physical spots build an incredible amount of localized trust and operational control that a fancy digital-only app just can't match. All right, part 5, the data and intelligence flywheel. This flywheel effect is pure genius. You know how the traditional farming model works, right? Produce first and pray you find buyers later? Well, Soupe completely reverses that. Because communities are buying collaboratively and institutions are putting in pre-orders, Soupe generates highly precise demand data. They take that visibility and hand it straight to the farmers. So the farmers gain confidence, which means supply increases, which leads to more transactions. The system then gathers even more data on what people are buying, when, and exactly where. The intelligence layer just gets smarter and smarter. Waste drops, the customer experience improves, and it naturally attracts even more users. And let's be clear, this has a real, tangible impact on the ground. Right now, Soupe has a pipeline of over 7,000 farmers, but they fundamentally understand that just teaching a farmer to grow more crops doesn't actually create prosperity if those crops end up rotting by the side of the road. Soupe is hyper-focused on commercialization. They are helping farmers access these massive pools of aggregated buyers, giving them pricing intelligence, and eventually plugging them into embedded financing. By connecting these farmers directly to predictable, reliable demand, Soupe is building a much more prosperous and resilient agricultural backbone. Finally, let's wrap up with part 6, scaling a defensible venture. So here is the ask. The target seed capital raise is 600 million naira. And remember, this money is intended as rocket fuel for a machine that the Loom Palm journey has already proven actually works. They aren't raising this cash to test out some wild hypothesis. They are raising it to scale a validated working infrastructure. And this is definitely not just a pure tech play. When you look at the allocation, it's a very balanced strategic vision. Sure, 25% is fueling the digital architecture, but crucially, a full 20% is dedicated to putting real roots in the ground with those physical consumer experience centers. You'll also notice a solid chunk set aside for working capital, daily operations, and expanding the market footprint. It's an incredibly disciplined strategy to build out both the digital brain and the physical nervous system of the entire platform. Because of this multi-layered revenue model, which pulls from commerce, SaaS subscriptions, fulfillment fees, and embedded finance, it creates a highly valuable enterprise. Just look at the conservative 5-year scenario. With merely 10 physical hubs and 10,000 farmers, we are already looking at an illustrative enterprise valuation between 5 and 15 billion naira. If they hit their base or aggressive targets by really leaning into those network effects and their data flywheel, the scale of this company becomes continentally significant. So, we'll leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. Look, anyone can hire a dev team and build a digital storefront to sell groceries online. But Soupe isn't trying to just be a grocery store. They are fundamentally rewiring how an entire continent plans, coordinates, finances, and shares its food. When you step back and look at the physical hubs, the community buying loops, the embedded finance, and that massive data flywheel, you really have to ask yourself, in a trillion-dollar market that is absolutely desperate for coordination, what is the true value of owning the underlying operating system? Thanks for joining us on this Explainer. See you next time.